Everybody. Today I am joined by Alan Richardson, the evil tester. Welcome, Alan.
Hi, thank you.
Alan, tell the people about yourself. Wait, before you do that, let's give them time to get in because I don't want anybody to miss your intro. So I'll just do some housekeeping and some announcements, okay? For everybody who's joining, go ahead and type something in the chat so that I know you're here. Let us know where you're from. We like to see people represented from all over. So just go ahead and type in the chat where you're from while I do these announcements. We got our first LinkedIn person. Hello. So today is my first time on LinkedIn Live. They have their stuff so locked down, you can't. Oh, look at Viv, Richard. That's your homeboy. LinkedIn has their live so locked down, you have to apply. Look at all these LinkedIn people. You have to apply, and then somebody has to approve you, but they really just leave your stuff kind of in some email folder, and nobody answers you. So I had to pull strings and reach out to my connects in order to actually get this approved. So welcome to the LinkedIn family. Welcome. Oh, wow. Everybody's in here. Argentina. We have Munich. We have Brazil. Wow. Montreal. Hello, everybody. U.S. folks in the building. Cairo. Wow. Hey, everybody. Oh, wow. It's so good to see y'all. Wales. Hey, Mike. Seattle. India in the building. Tessie, you made it. Tessie, Alan. Hesse was debating on if he was going to come to this or if he was going to finish his talk like a responsible adult, and he decided to come hang with us. Hello, Spain and Bulgaria and Egypt. Oh my gosh, and South Africa. Hello. Bring some more people on Twitch, Amber. You holding it down for Twitch. We have YouTube. We have, okay. Oh, yes, Greece and Germany. Hello. Represents Nigeria. Hello. Someone says, hello from London. All right, Alan, I think that gives them enough to... Amber says all the cool kids on LinkedIn. I told LinkedIn this. I was arguing my case y'all need to approve me. I'll get y'all site popping. What is that sound, Ryan? What is that?
Yeah, I'm not approved to go live on LinkedIn.
I'm telling you.
I can only go live on LinkedIn via Angie.
All right, Anna, go ahead and let the people know about you. Who are you, Alan? Who are you?
Okay, so my name is Alan Richardson. I'm a test and development consultant, and you can find pretty much everything you need to know on eviltester.com. The basic thing is I do testing, programming, development work, writing, YouTube's videos. I mean, I just try and put out as much as humanly possible about what I learn. Right, that's all I ever put live, stuff that I learn, and I hope that it's useful to some people. And if it's not, that's tough. It's stuff that I learned. And it's all on eviltester.com.
Yes, eviltester.com. And if you want to follow Alan on Twitter, he is Evil Tester. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's at Evil Tester. Okay. You've set this all up in advance. I don't know what you're going to show on screen. This is good.
Yes. So Alan is being somewhat modest. You see those books in the background, especially the ones where you can read the title. Alan is actually the author of those books. Java for Testers.
I don't know how that happened. They're just shown there. I don't know how that happened.
Highly recommended book, Java for Testers, and also automating and testing the REST API. So I think I have all of Alan books, especially those two. Very, very good content. All right. And someone else says they highly recommend Alan's books as well. All right. So why is Alan on our cooking show today? Well, so y'all remember last time I went live. We did the tic-tac-toe game, and that was really fun. People seem to really like that. I was inspired to do that by a gentleman who used Selenium to play a virtual piano online. And I just thought that was so cool to be able to use automation to do something besides testing, right? We have the skills to do this stuff, and yet we limit the scope of our knowledge to just test, right? So I chose to do a tic-tac-toe game to kind of do that same fun vibe, and I did it in Java. And Alan saw the tic-tac-toe game, and he didn't look at my video. He just thought, oh, that's a neat idea. And he does stuff with games and stuff all the time. And he even has a course on automating things within the browser. So, and that course is on Test Automation University. It's free. Definitely take it. One of my favorite courses there. But Alan, he did a JavaScript solution to the tic-tac-toe game, and he did it within the browser console, which was pretty cool. So I watched Alan's video, and we wanted to get together just to kind of do a comparison, a compare and contrast of these two different solutions. Lots of differences. One is in Java and in an IDE. One is in JavaScript and no IDE. The Java one is more kind of a model-based approach, whereas Alan's is more of a let's get it done. What's the task? Let's get it done. And so there could be some pros and cons to both of these approaches, and we want to just kind of go over those, all right? All right, so let's see what folks are saying in the chat, Alan. Two great guys. I'm not a guy, but I get this. Evil Tester rocks. A bunch of people from a bunch of places. Okay, Ryan is saying, Angie, give away one of your books and one of his books to best comments. I'll buy and ship to them. Ryan loves a good contest, y'all. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So let's jump into it. Alan, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. My code's tiny.
All right, I'm gonna get off of the stage. This is my first time doing a share, so y'all.
All right. So not only did Angie go off the stage, I heard her just cut off completely. So this is mine. Hopefully you can see it. Thing is, if you can't see it, I can't see in the comments. So I'm going to assume that everyone can see it. And the basic thing is, this literally is everything I have in order to automate the game. And if I play this, because this is in the snippets view, Angie said we don't have an IDE in the browser. We kind of do. If I look at the sources view, expand this, you get the normal page where you see the sources, but we also have a snippets view, which is a mini IDE inside our browser. So what I can do here is, having written some code, let me close this. I'm just going to run this so we can see it play. Oops, it's noisy. Hang on a sec. Let me mute that. And all this really does is it has two states. It basically says, can I find the overlay that says we need to start the game? If I can, then click on it. If I can't, then find all the squares that don't have anything in it, randomly choose one, then click on them. So this doesn't even care about the game. It knows nothing about the game whatsoever. It just looks for, is there an empty square, and keeps clicking on it. This is all in a function, so it doesn't do anything. The magic happens because of this line here that says window.setInterval, which basically means every 500 milliseconds run this function. And I store that in a variable called playbot, because otherwise this would just go on forever. But if I take this command here that says window.clearInterval playbot, put that in the console, then it will stop. So I can start and stop this. There's nothing. This is the kind of automated execution you would do in order to support you as a tester. Right? I could have this running and watch the game to see if anything odd happens. I could have this running. I could monitor the memory in the browser to see if we're taking up too much memory. There's a risk to that because my code itself is running in the browser, so it might take up more memory. But one of the interesting things here is we can use this type of approach for setting up test data in applications which don't have an API, or we just want to do it through the GUI and do it fast. I've automated loads of games, and sometimes the automated execution that we've got here can go further than a human player. So if we wanted to play a game and test it, they can go up to level 200. It's very hard for a player to do that. But these kind of in-browser bots can do that, and they respond very quickly to the IDE that's in place. One benefit of this, I'm going to drop down the timing here to 5 milliseconds and play this. Now, this might not demonstrate what I want. What I'm hoping is that at some point it will demonstrate that we try to click on things when it's not ready. And we'll see a ton of JavaScript errors if that happens. But because this is a live demo, we probably won't actually see that happen. But if we do see it happen, it won't impact the automated execution at all, right? Because no error in here makes any difference. There we go. So what's happened there is I've now got 103 errors flashed up, but it made no difference to the automated execution whatsoever, because the automated execution doesn't care. It just runs a function. It's not doing anything. It's just exercising the application. All of this, by the way, is on Git as a gist. So, but also I blogged about this on evotester.com, so you can find it there. But it's tiny. Being able to do something like this is an incredibly tactical way to work. You wouldn't do this long term, right? You would never put this in your continuous integration. You might give this to other people if they wanted to run the game and test that it did different sounds at different times. It's an assistant. It's an aid to people. It's not what we normally do for automated execution to cover the full strategic approach to automated execution. Angie's approach is much more long-term strategic. Mine is very, very simple and focused on the game itself. So that's a quick overview of that. I mean, in order to do this, if you read the blog post or watch the video, you'll see the steps for going through. I have to do a lot of looking in the DOM, experimenting. In fact, half the experiments are in here as comments because I have to try and experiment to make sure I can automate this the right way. But that's all covered in there. This is the basic thing. It's just a simple function that runs in an interval. So hopefully Angie will come back and she hasn't dropped off completely.
I'm here.
All right, you scared me for a second.
All right, Alan, some folks are saying on YouTube they couldn't see your code. I saw it very clearly, but if it's really, really short block of code, let me see if I can just find that and share it with the people really quick. Here's the gist. Okay, hold on, guys. All right. Alan, you had it shorter than this. Hold on.
So all the comments are in there as well.
Oh, I see. All right, so let me share with you all so you can see. Hold on. Share. Yes, this one. All right. Is that good? And let me put Alan off so you guys can really see. All right. So this is the code, basically. These lines from 4 to 15 there. All right. So that's it. Like, very straightforward. Alan already has given you the explanation of this. But yeah, really, really straightforward. I thought it was really clean, Alan. And when I saw your code, I was like, oh crap, like I totally over-engineered my solution. But let's see if I did in fact. All right, so let me show you all my code. All right. So let me switch this. Hold on. All right, there we go. All right, so my code takes a more model-based approach. So I wanted to, there was a couple of kind of, I guess, agenda items here. One, I wanted, of course, to play the game. Two, I also wanted to utilize Selenium. And then three, I wanted to just teach more kind of design and architecture type of concepts with mine. So it could be a bit over-engineered, but we'll see. So what happened? Hold on, y'all. I pressed the wrong button. All right, share my code. All right, okay, there we go. All right, so here's my solution. So I have this method here in this play game class. I have 4 different classes in order to do this, right? And I basically have 2 loops. One is looking for a winner, so that's kind of saying we're going to play a game and the first person who gets to 5 wins. So that's what that's saying. And then inside of here, I play on the board until the game is over. And let me take you to the board. Let's see. So this board class. This board class, we kind of model everything. We model the board, we model the spaces, like each space I have here with its CSS selector on how to get to that space. And the board, we have where you can play the board, you can see which spaces are open and all of that stuff. And then even modeling the game to see like, who's won, is the game over, printing out results and all of that stuff, all right? Now, both of our solutions, both Alan's and in my solution, just plays the game. Like, that's it. No real intelligence here. If you saw either one of our games in actions, we were losing terribly. We were losing. And that's because we're just randomly picking spots. So I probably will want to build upon this in a future stream where I'm going to add some intelligence to mine to be able to say pick the best spot and try to actually win the game. And with that notion, I think the modeling will come in more handy. All right, so let me add Alan back and we'll discuss. All right. So,
so they do play the game terribly, but I think they play the game terribly well, right? They do.
That's true. It depends. Are you playing the winner or are you playing the play, you know?
Yeah. So they play it well. And what's interesting is, so you have models all the way through this, right? When I talk about modeling in terms of code, we've got multiple different models. We've got logical models in terms of the game of tic-tac-toe, right? And that game will never change. If you build a model of the tic-tac-toe game and the gameplay, then if the implementation changes, that model will never change. Because what we're trying to do is we're starting to build abstraction layers. And the more that we can build models and code of the application at different levels, then we have the ability to be more immune to application changes, which is what we want when we do test automation. And you have models all the way through. Like your main method models a loop of playing the game. It models stopping if we win. It does a whole bunch of models. I have no concept of the game, right? My application could essentially play anything that clicks on stuff. I could mine could be converted to play missile command. It would be almost exactly the same code. Yours wouldn't make that leap because you have a different model. The interesting thing is you say you've over-engineered it. I don't think you have. And I think if you spent more time on it, because you only spent, about half an hour real time doing this.
Right.
Like you would split apart some of it from WebDriver, because at the moment all your classes have got WebDriver in there, but you would probably split that out at some point in order to make them more immune to change. One of the interesting things I thought, seeing your code there just now, is that you use XPath for your locators. And what drives you to use XPath?
I get heat for this sometimes too, Alan. I do, because people are like, "Oh, don't use XPath, use CSS selector," and I have no idea why they're saying this. This was like a myth several years ago that CSS selectors were a tiny bit faster, like a small fraction of a second. The reason I use XPath is because it's more, I feel more expressive and more human readable. Like I can remember very quickly to say following sibling or preceding sibling, and like relationships and stuff. So I deal a lot with relationships because most of the jobs I've had have been on legacy type of software where developers aren't building in IDs and stuff like this. And as much as we say, make those developers put an ID on it, in real life, listen, that's a fight. You pick your battles, right? And that's not what I want to pick. So XPaths are easier for me to remember. Like I can craft them pretty much without looking anything up. For CSS selectors, for me, the symbols and stuff are very confusing. So when I watched your video and you did a CSS selector for not X and not O to be able to get the empty spaces, like I don't know that off the top of my head. Like I know the not, and I probably know how to do one class, but then when I needed to do two classes, I couldn't think of it right away. So it's like, forget all of this symbol stuff, and I can just write out what I want to say, you know?
So there's a secret.
And
the secret is...
Go ahead.
Yeah, but the secret is I practice before I do that video. Right, so a lot of my looking things up happens before the video, whereas you do it completely live, so everyone gets to see that.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, the models that we create in code also represent the kind of biases that we have towards constructing things. Right? There's no real difference in XPath or CSS selector. But I use the CSS selector. I'm forced to use the CSS selector because I'm working in JavaScript. I don't have the option of using XPath. And because I do a lot of that work in the browser, I'm much more likely to use CSS selector. And that translates over into the Selenium world as well. But also because I build my own websites and everything is handcrafted and I do my own CSS, you just kind of get used to that. So,
right.
I mean, I do find that front-end developers, in fact, developers more use CSS than XPath. So sometimes it's easier to work with them, but there's no right or wrong with it. It's more just I try and keep things as humanly simple as possible because I'm working in multiple languages. So I'll be working in PHP, JavaScript, Java, because I don't use any of the cool Java features that you're using. Right? Streams don't go anywhere near my code because I can't remember how to do that in PHP or JavaScript. So I use for loops right everywhere. I just keep very simple constructs because it makes it easier to move about.
Yeah.
And it's one of the interesting things when we look at other people's code. A lot of the time that happens through code reviews is we go, this is bad, this is not. And it's more, this is what we've agreed to do on this site, but pretty much everything is acceptable. But you have models all the way through. Like you've got the game, you've got the board, you've got
the space
an interesting
board.
Yep. And whereas I have none of that. And the other good thing about the modeling aspect is it gives you places to unit test your code, right? Some of your code could be unit tested.
Speak
parts that don't have WebDriver.
Unit test. Y'all listening? Y'all pay attention. Go ahead, Alan. Preach to them.
Because the more that you build domain models, they are completely separate from the physical domain. So you can unit test them, right? Because a lot of people discuss, should I be unit testing my automated execution code or not? And the answer is, well, anything that doesn't have WebDriver in it or API calls, yes, you probably should, because it's representing a domain that you can unit test. And it just gives you a lot more confidence to keep pushing through your code and refactoring it to make it more readable. And it's one of the indicators of, have I got enough separation in my code? If I haven't got any unit tests testing any of my code, I probably don't have enough separation. So everything, my tool for executing is probably too wrapped up with the actual model that I'm trying to execute. So, and so when you look at your code, what would you be tempted to refactor?
So when I did the live, you know, I didn't do any of this beforehand, so I just kind of like did it all on the fly. And then I wrote the blog post after the live where I had to put the code in the blog post. And so that gave me more opportunity to think through things. So there were some things I kind of cleaned up. Like I saw some of the stuff like I was repeating around seeing if the space was available. That I might have like checked that like 2 or 3 times before actually hitting it. So I was able to like clean some of that stuff out and make the game even faster. Pese, who's on, Pese always gives me like really good input on the stream. And so he asked one of the questions about one of those fancy streams or whatever. So I use like the stream stuff a lot. And in one case I didn't use it. And he called me out on it, like, Angie, why aren't you using this thing? Can't you like filter stuff out? And so offline, I was able to figure out like how to do that. So I feel pretty good about it now. I wouldn't refactor what I have now, but I would want to add to it. That's something I definitely want to do in a future stream. I want to win. So Alan, I care about winning. I am very competitive. And I don't like losing my tic-tac-toe game to a robot. So I'm definitely going to look into that. I don't know if I even need to do AI or if I could do a more simpler approach. So that's definitely something that I want to think about and consider. Let's see what people are saying in the comments. Let's see. Okay. Okay, people are just kind of talking about the code. Oh, thank you, Ashley. Hey, Angie, much love. Thank you. Hey, Danny. Thank you. Someone said your game was very, very fast, Alan.
And so that one will be fast. Yep, it will play fast, and it can play faster than a human can, which is really important sometimes when you're trying to automate a shoot 'em up. Right? You really have to respond really fast. But you also have the advantage that you've got access to all the internal variables in the game. Right? You don't have to do everything externally, so you have a lot more advantages when you're automating within the browser.
And for the automate with the browser, Alan, tell them about your course so they can know how to automate with the browser too.
Yeah, so the course covers pretty much everything that I did in here, explaining how to use events, how to explore the DOM to see where to figure out what hooks to use, and what do I automate in that. It's the to-do application, I think. So it's much more like a normal application, which gives us a chance to see it in context. Because a lot of people would look at this automated execution and go, well, I would never use that. How could I possibly use this? But if we are testing any application with a front end, and that application is making API calls, we can do all of that from the browser. We can simulate API calls with different things. We can set up lots of data. We can explore the huge... It's unbelievable how many possibilities this opens up. And everything that I did, Angie could have done in Java, right? Because you've got the JavaScript executor. So once you know how to do it in Java in the browser, you can immediately
Hey, y'all still there? I lost Alan. Hold on. Alan talking. Okay. All right, go ahead, Alan. Sorry, we had a little glitch.
Yeah, I dropped out. What was I saying?
You were talking about your course and the cool stuff.
Yes, what I was going to say is people don't realize that we make a lot of mistakes as we're coding. Like Angie does a really good job demonstrating live coding on this thing. So she's looking stuff up and moving things around. But we do that all the time when we're automating. And what makes it hard is when Angie's doing her demo, she's trying to communicate to you what she's doing whilst trying to think, and it's really hard. So you don't create optimal code when you're doing that. So what you're seeing is not the best code that Angie can do, and it's a miracle that it works at all when she's doing it live, to be honest, because I'm not sure I'd be able to do that. That's why I practice in advance.
Alan, you should have.
I think it'd be.
You should have seen one of my streams. I don't remember what it. I don't remember what I was doing, but I remember now. I was showing a new feature from Java 14, and it's a preview feature, so it's not like out, right? And IntelliJ was being so mean to me, and it was so embarrassing on the stream because I could not get IntelliJ to figure this stuff out. And the crowd hung with me. They love to see me struggle, Alan. They love seeing me just mess up and sweat.
Yep, that's what they do. But I mean, what's really good, what I would love to see are more people putting out examples of automating just small, simple things so we can see all the differences. Because, I mean, it's just even that difference between my CSS selector and your XPath selector shows that there are multiple approaches to getting stuff off the screen. And that's just one of many approaches that we could use. And if someone's done it already, hopefully anyone that's learning Java will download your code and try it. We'll run it, we'll try and change it, we'll hack it about, and then you don't even have to type it in. Because that's how we used to learn code in the olden days, by typing it in from magazines, and it would always break. Very often, all I ever got running were like intros for games or just the music routines. But it helps you see the sections of code and just experiment with it. That's why putting things out on Gist, the more people that put stuff out, the better, I think. Yeah. And also, you've got a slightly different approach, Angie, than you would normally do when you're doing automated execution, because you've created a main method.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of examples of people demonstrating test automation with main methods, but they're doing that almost wrong, right? Because they're trying to demonstrate test automation, but they're putting in a main method. You've got a main method not because you're doing test automation, but because you're trying to create an application that will play on the side and would support people playing the application. So you're actually making that separation between automating and test automation, because we munge those together way too much. And it's really important that people understand that automating is a separate concept. Once we know how to automate, we can then use it in context of testing, and then we call it test automation because it supports our testing, but automating is a completely separate concept. Yes. All right. They have some questions for you.
Cool. So Shabaji is asking, we talked about tic-tac-toe game here, but how similar or different is this from mobile app game? And I know you do a lot of automating and gaming and stuff like that. So you want to take that one?
So what's interesting is some of the mobile games will be completely the same, right? Because they'll be using a JavaScript framework. They'll wrap the embedded browser in some sort of executable, and it will be exactly the same. There's some games that you can play online, that you can play on the mobile, and they're the same. What you don't have really the ability to do, you might but haven't experimented with it, is using JavaScript in the console, because you can hook Chrome as a browser in debug mode onto mobiles. So you might be able to do this kind of thing through that. I haven't tried that. But if it is a game that is playable in a browser and playable separately on a mobile, you could do the type of approach that I've done as an initial way of flushing a whole bunch of stuff out. But if you actually want to automate it on the mobile, you have to adopt Angie's approach, because then you're going to be using Appium to go through and actually connect to the device, because we're trying to deal with different risks at that point. Right? My approach is dealing with risks around it. Does this thing even play? Do events trigger? Does the game happen in certain ways? But I'm not dealing with the risk of, can a person play this in context in the browser through all the different scenarios And you would adapt Angie's kind of Java approach to Appium to do that.
Mm-hmm. Here's another good question. When do you know when to stop refactoring?
So sometimes it's enforced upon you by time, right? There's just no point refactoring anymore. Like Angie could be refactoring her code, but there's no point because it works. It does what it sets out to do at this point. When Angie touches it again, then you probably refactor parts of it in order to make the next steps easier.
Right.
And sometimes so when you stop is more when you can't really think of anything else or you're adding no value to it.
Right.
But if you can see more tests that you want to add on it, more unit tests, then you probably want to keep going.
Or sometimes you're making it worse by continuing to refactor. So I've been in situations where I'll refactor some code. I'm trying to get it clean. I'm breaking up concerns and, everything it's doing its own thing to the point where, especially in tests, like so I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you have these tests and they're all kind of doing the same thing, but they're separate tests and they have separate data and it might be like some slight variation or whatever. And so you might say, well, I see a pattern here. Let me kind of modularize this and I'm going to put one big test method and all of those guys kind of call into there, right? All right, so you do that and all of your tests are one-liners now, right? And this looks really clean. But one of those tests failed and you go and look at it and the code tells you nothing. It's a one-liner that's called into some other method that now you need to go there and kind of debug. And then it starts getting a little bit too separated and too confusing, and you've kind of refactored this a bit too much. So while technically it might fit the principle of like try, don't repeat yourself, you need to look at what are you trading off here? Are you trading off like readability or debuggability and things like this?
Well, that's also where the concept of modeling in code helps. Right, because if your model in code encapsulates the domain that you're trying to work with, you've probably gone far enough. If you have overlapping domains or partitions in there, like a logical partition with a physical one, you might need to do a bit more refactoring. I think the domain-driven design book is really good at helping explore that, and so is growing object-oriented software through tests. Mm-hmm. They're my kind of two favorite books on domain-driven design, abstracting, refactoring.
Nice. Penny says it's awesome to watch and listen to two coders, testers, teacher who are so admired. Thank you both. Yeah, I want to thank Alan for doing what he did with the tic-tac-toe, and I invited him to come on the show so we could talk about it. There's a way that you can look at something that you admire and be inspired by it and do your own thing and not like copy, right? So when I saw that piano, I was a little bit jealous. I'm not a person that gets jealous, but I was a little bit jealous. I didn't think of that idea, but I didn't copy this man's work, Instead, I use it as inspiration to do something else. So that's what we should do in the craft. Alan is really good on that as well. You see something and then you build upon it, or you do something different that's inspired by that. I've had I'm sure Alan, you probably have too, had my work copied and things like this, and that doesn't feel good, You can be inspired by someone's stuff and collaborate and take it to the next level. Thank you, Penny, for that. Someone says, Evil Tester really plays to his name with that echo. You have an echo? Does he have an echo? He has really good sound usually, so I hope it's not echoing now. How important is understanding data structures and algorithms in automation testing? Okay, so we might have different opinions. This is an interesting question. So I've talked to people who have various opinions. about this, and we might have talked about this, Alan, in a hallway track. I'm not sure, but okay. So I don't use like data structures as heavily as other constructs within programming, but I do use them often enough that it's important to know about them. Like I use lists quite often, or sometimes I may have to use a map. As far as algorithms go, like not the typical ones you learn in like a CS course, but some basic things around like handling data and stuff like that has been very helpful to me. I've had someone who is a highly respected automation engineer when I was working on my Java course, and I was putting that together, and I was telling him what I was going to include, and I do have like a chapter that goes into the collections framework. So I talk about lists and maps and other data structures. And he was like, oh, why are you going that far? Like, you don't need that. And I was like, no, you use this stuff sometimes. So Alan, what's your experience and thoughts on this?
So you certainly need to know the difference between a list and a set and know how to use maps. But most of it is knowing the very basics to know when to use them. It's rare that you're ever going to have to implement your own linked list, right? That's what we used to do. If you were coding in C, you would have to create your own linked list structures. I've had to learn data structures because I've written compilers and interpreters in low-level languages, and you have to implement that stuff from scratch. Nowadays, we have all that given to us. So we have to know the difference to know when to use them. We have to know, in some cases when we're automating, which ones are thread safe and which are not, because we're going to have to do concurrent type programming. But that's pretty much the level that we have to go to. And in terms of algorithms, again, a lot of that is just built in through libraries. So you look for a sort routine, but you probably never have to implement your own quick sort routine. One of the good things about learning algorithms is it gives you a little challenge, a little kind of small section of code to try and write to learn how to do it. But it's more just a learning approach rather than anything you'd use in production. I mean, if you're working on a project and people tell you they've written their own quick sort routines, you should be nervous, right? Because you're going to have to test it and it's going to be a pain. So the language gives you those things.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because we see it like a lot of people complain about the technical interviews because they expect you to know this stuff. Alan works for himself. He's fortunate enough. But the rest of us who are like interviewing at jobs and stuff, we're expected to know this even as like automation folks. So I do have a video somewhere. Go to my website, angiejones.tech. And if you search on there, I have something about, just search for interview. But I have like a video that I've done that talks about like my interview experience when I moved out here to Silicon Valley, and I interview with the Googles and the Twitters and the Amazons and stuff like that. And even the job that I have now, I had to do like, whiteboarding interviews and stuff. And it's embarrassing. Nobody asked me anything about automation. Like, for all they know, I couldn't automate anything, but all of the questions were around algorithms and data structures and building linked lists from scratch. And this stuff is ridiculous to me because, like you say, Alan, all this, like, we have libraries for this stuff. So I always like do the smart answer when someone asks me like, oh, how would you, sort this list or whatever. I was like, I call collections.sort, and they're like, yeah, smart ass. No, what I mean, do it from scratch kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. Do need to know it sometimes, unfortunately, just to get the job. As far as on the job, some exposure to it, but not necessarily be an expert. Okay, someone is asking, how do you handle A/B tests in terms of automation? For example, A/B test uses common microservices in different front end. I wrote a post recently on A/B testing. So Applitools has come out with like this new variations thing that has made like automating A/B tests pretty interesting. Maybe I'll do a walkthrough of that. But I do have a blog post and a video on it. So if you search, like, I guess, search Google, and it's not on my website because it's corporate, but you could search like Amplitude's A/B testing and Angie Jones or something, and it should come up. Alan, would you agree that writing good code has a lot in common with telling a good story?
So it might do, but hopefully it doesn't have all the kind of terror moments and
the
drama in the middle, right? Because that's what you do as you're coding. But hopefully when you're finished, it looks like the start and the end with all the bumps in between. I think what we might be referring to is, does it read well? And is it easy to understand? And does it... Because one of the things that I've learned from advertising copy is that you want the copy itself to just lead on to the next line, right? So that's the purpose of each line, to take you to the next part. And that's what code should be. The purpose of this code is to get to the next point, to get to the next point. And it needs to be readable at that level. So one of the things that we have to learn, not necessarily is data structures, but is learning abstractions and what level, who we are talking to. We're telling it's a story to the right audience, and it's written in the language that they can understand, and we write the abstractions to make it clear for them.
Yes, very good. All right, Alan, there's a lot more questions. Did you want to talk about anything about? None of them are about the tic-tac-toe game. So people have come and they see Angie and Alan, they're like, no, I'm about to get these.
That's fine.
You cool?
I don't mind. I mean,
all right.
We can weave in tic-tac-toe into any of these answers that we want.
Right.
That'll be fine.
I'm with it. Okay, this one is long, so it's not showing on screen, but let me read it to you. It says, I see a lot of examples where in WebDriver is sent as an argument to the page object's parameterized constructor. Do you prefer this way, or instead get the driver in, say, a base page and then use it directly in page objects using inheritance? I prefer not. I had a coworker once who said, man, this code base is passing around this WebDriver like a dirty rag. And I always laugh when I think about that. I prefer if we didn't have to pass it around so much. Alan?
So I prefer to pass it around. I have an aversion to inheritance.
Really? So let's talk on it.
So I'd like to pass things around. And if I'm passing in too many parameters, then I'll create an object that encapsulates those parameters and pass that in. But I'm much more of a dependency injection without using any dependency injection frameworks person. So I try and instantiate as much as possible through constructors, because I don't really want to amend the object once it's created, because it's an object. But sometimes I'll have to do that. But I avoid inheritance. I rarely use base pages. I mean, I teach people how to do it because you all want to know how to do it, but I just never do that.
Interesting. Again, different strokes for different folks. Doesn't make one more right or one more wrong. Just different preferences and things like that. All right.
Yep. And plus you write the code that can be understood in the environment that you're working. And for some people, inheritance makes it easier for people to work with it. And all your tests are doing the same thing. So having inheritance in there makes perfect sense. I like to try and make my stuff as flexible as possible. And inheritance sometimes makes that harder. But I've worked on environments where we've used inheritance because that's the right thing to do for the people that are working with the code.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked for your YouTube channel. Is it just Evil Tester?
So I think it's youtube.com/c/Evil Tester videos, but I can't remember. But there's a link.
Website. It's eviltester.com, and I'm sure he has a link to his YouTube.
Yep, there's links to it from there.
All right, somebody's asking, how do you say this? Bullshit. How much time are you investing to develop your coding skills? And I think this is a really good question because we both code a lot and we code very publicly. which takes a certain level of, I guess, confidence to be able to do something like that. How much are you investing? How much time are you investing in this, Alan?
So I don't even count it. I don't think of it in those terms, simply because I love coding and I'm coding all the time. Right? I mean, I automate so much stuff in my daily life that I'm doing that. I write a lot of applications. I mean, I have my own Twitter client that I write and maintain. I've got multi-user text adventure games. There's test applications. I write a lot of utilities for my stuff. I automate simple activities like generating data. I'm doing it all the time, but we've also got to remember, I've been doing this for forever. So it's part of what I do. Yeah. But when I was trying to learn a language, then you do spend a lot more time deliberately practicing, deliberately going through it. I think what's hard for a lot of people is that they're learning, they're not necessarily using what they're doing at work, or they jump between this too late, right? They'll do a lot of testing for a couple of days, and they'll come and do some automated execution for half a day, and they've forgotten a lot of what they're doing because they're not building up that kind of muscle memory. Once you've done it for a long time, that muscle memory is there, and it doesn't take that long to get started again. So we don't tend to think of it as much in those terms, but I think the answer is a lot.
Yeah, same for me. Like I just really enjoy coding. When I'm coding stuff, I'm not like, oh, let me sharpen my skills. It's like genuinely, oh, wow, look, that's something I don't know. Let me play with it because I want to know it, you know. I'm always looking out, like Java is my favorite language, so I keep very close tabs on that. And when the new releases are out, even before they're out, like when they're in preview mode, I'm like jumping on the features and I want to try them out and you know, see how it's going to, mostly not just to know it, but see how it's going to make my life easier, you know, because I have to code a lot. So if there's a better way to do something, or there's a new tool at my disposal, I definitely want to know about this. I also code on other things. So besides automation, like I have a web game that I built or whatever. So that's both front end and back end. That front end stuff like kicks my butt all the time, like the CSS and the JavaScript and stuff like that. But, you know, it's a means to an end. It's something that I have. It's something, you know, it's a part of my business and things like that. So I have to keep up with this stuff, you know. And I also take courses and stuff. So I take courses on TAU. I take courses on LinkedIn, other places. I just like to learn. And I think that's something that's really kind of unique to our field. Like things are just constantly changing all the time. And so it's just really good to continuously keep your skills up to date. Okay, let's see. What else? Somebody's talking about your story stuff. Somebody on Twitch, I don't know why you can't sub. I don't know how to work Twitch. I just like broadcast here and then go about my business. I don't know. What's the future of Java in respect to Python and Go? Okay, so Python and Go is not like coming into the industry. Python is actually older than Java. You didn't know that, huh? Learning new stuff every day. Java is fine. Java, I'll say maybe about 3-4 years ago, it was looking kind of rough because even the Java developers, the hardcore Java developers, were becoming like frustrated with the lack of advancement of the language. But since then, like it would be 3 years between releases. Now it's every 6 months is a new release of Java. Guaranteed promise, 6-month release cycle. So we're seeing a lot of advancements with the language, and we're seeing introductions like functional programming concepts and the things that you love in other languages as well. So, and then there's a lot of businesses that are still running with Java. I think it's still like the #1 language as far as like commercial use. So it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Your language is fine too. Everybody's language is fine. How do you approach IoT testing and hardware? I don't know. Other than services stuff, like so IoT stuff, I haven't specifically done like any IoT testing. Have you, Alan?
So what I find interesting is that there are different concerns, and that we're much more concerned with IoT around memory usage and long-term running of it. But it's really hard to observe that on the device sometimes, because testers often get given the finished device and not like some sort of breadboard with the capabilities of hooking it in. And very often when you're working at that level, the tools that we use for testers are not the same tools that you need in order to help you monitor. So I think there's a lot of hardships in there. But I think IoT is also slightly different from hardware compatibility testing, because most of the IoT testing is dedicated for a single device. Whereas hardware compatibility testing, you're looking at, I guess, like an Android app across multiple devices, in which case we have to do things that people never do, which is look at all the calls that we're making, which ones are supported in which versions of Android, where are the compatibility risks, because you want to try and reduce the scope. But no one ever does that kind of technical analysis to reduce the scope of their testing, which I think the more technical we become, the easier that is. And we could write applications that are easier to do compatibility testing because they're kind of self-testing. Like it used to be when you switched on an arcade machine, it would start up in diagnostic mode and show all the different stuff, because they were boards that you put into different hardware configurations to see if they worked. And that's what that hardware testing was for. If it passed those tests, it would work on that device. And it didn't run the game, it just ran those diagnostic parts. If we could get back into doing the habit of those kind of things, we would probably find it a little bit easier to do hardware compatibility testing.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. Do you think it's better to learn multiple languages at a simpler level and be a bit of a Swiss Army knife, or learn one language more deeply and specialize? So I have this theory about programming languages. The concepts behind programming I found are pretty much the same no matter what language, right? So I first started programming, I learned C++ first, and then I went to Java. I fell in love with Java. We've been going out for a very long time now, and that's my main language. And I learned Java very, very deeply because I wanted to get certified. So I had to learn it very deeply to pass the certification test, which I did. But since then, I've had to pick up PHP. I've had to pick up JavaScript. I've had to pick up Swift, and then various other languages as well. And it's not been a huge leap for me because I already know the tools in programming. I know, and these are the things you should focus on. So pick any language, but learn about like conditional statements. So your if and your else, your switch stuff. Learn about loops. Learn about the various kinds. So for loops, while loops, or whatever. Learn variables, of course. Learn about the different data structures, so arrays and lists and maps and things like this. And once I understood those concepts, picking up another language is just a matter of syntax. I already know the logic. I know the algorithm. That's the hard part. What's the algorithm? The steps that you have to do. And once you've become good at this, it's just like, okay, how do I say if else in this language? That's a Google search. Bet. Done. You know what I mean? Alan, any other thoughts on that?
It's also worth remembering that if you code relatively simply, then it's pretty easy to translate into every other language. So you need to know the broad strokes, but you need to go a little bit beyond what you actually need as your basics, because you want to keep pushing what you're doing. Our aim as test automators is to design code, right? We're designing abstraction layers and designing it to make it more maintainable and readable, which is not necessarily what programmers do.
Sorry, y'all, that's my lunch.
So it's not necessarily what programmers do, right? Programmers learn to make their code as efficient as humanly possible, right? And really push it. So they have to really learn the languages in detail and learn concurrency in detail. So for some of the applications I've written, I've had to learn the language in detail because it's multi-user concurrent applications. But most of the things that we write for automating are relatively simple. But our nuance is in the design of code and how the objects all relate to each other. That's where the real skill for automating comes in. It's not at a detailed code level. And so a lot of the time, the best automated code is simple. It's just well architected and can be put together in multiple ways.
Exactly.
It's design skills that are really important.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So we're about at the top of the hour. And Alan, do you live in London?
Just outside, so close enough. So, London time zones.
It's getting late and I don't want to hold Alan much longer, but let me do like a couple of announcements. First of all, Alan, thank you so much for coming. Couple of announcements. Shout out to Amplitude who sponsors this stream. They are doing a hackathon where you can win. They're giving away like $50,000 and the prizes range from like $25 just for entering. I think all of those slots are filled, and up to like $5,000. So I think like 2 people win $5,000. So if that's something you're interested in, you have a little time on your hands, you want to do some coding practice. It's around cross-browser testing. Let me share my screen. Share. Hold on. Oh, all right. Good. All right. So this is the hackathon. So this is where you would go to like Amplitude's. This is the long URL, but I think I have this. Hold on. Let's see. Here we go. So that's the URL, amplitude.com/hackathon-apply. All right. And lots of money being given away. So check that out. Also, Test Automation University, my baby. Alan, like I've mentioned, has a great course there. Test Automation University, we are now over 50,000 members. Like, I think I checked yesterday and it was like 53,000 or something like that. So, yay. I'm very excited about this. We're going to do a live stream party. It's next week, so I'm not going to have the Wednesday session because I'm on PTO next week. But I am going to join for the party. The party is next Thursday. Let's see. Hold on. Yes, next Thursday, the 18th, June 18th. It'll be at 12 Eastern time. All right, that's 9 a.m. for me, which is super early for me. But hey, I love y'all that much that we're gonna do the party. So come on in. I'm gonna have trivia games. I'm gonna have prizes, some TAU swag, and stuff like that. So definitely come. It'll be on these same platforms: YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, LinkedIn. And I'm going to also have some instructors. So Alan will probably pop in again. I'll have some of your other favorite instructors to pop in and out. And you, if you've taken courses there, if you feel like Test Automation U has made an impact on your career, I want you to come on the stream as well. So let me know if you want to come. I'll send out like more info probably in the TAU Slack and on Twitter and stuff. But if you want to come and say a few words at the party, you're more than welcome to. If you don't want to get on camera, but you just want to come and hang out, come and do that too. All right. Okay. And let's see. Is that all my announcements? I think so. Again, this is Alan's course, Automated in the Browser using JavaScript. It is on Test Automation University. All the courses there are free. This is one of my favorite courses on TAU because you just learn so much about the Chrome DevTools and things that you can do within Chrome DevTools and how to manipulate the DOM and the events and all of this stuff. So very, very good. And Alan's site, so let's go to Alan's site, is eviltester.com for those who are asking. So he has books, he has training, he has blog posts, he has talks, a bunch of stuff. So he is like the master of content creation in our space. So definitely check that out as well. All right. Okay. Thank you all so very much. Alan, tell everybody goodbye.
Thank you for having me on. Goodbye, everybody. I'll see you online.
This is not a webinar, Sardar. This is a live stream, so this means less formal. We just hang out, but the next one's going to be next Thursday for the TAU party, and then I'll probably come on the next week on Wednesday and do another coding recipe. All right? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Alan. This has been fun. Thank you for doing the tic-tac-toe thing and the compare and contrast. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank y'all so much for coming. See you.